The hum of checkout scanners filled the Walmart like white noise when the laughter sliced through it. Sharp, mocking, and aimed directly at the small woman comparing detergent prices in the household aisle. That woman was Judge Judy. The same Judge Judy who'd commanded courtrooms for decades, who'd built an empire on intellect and iron discipline, and here she was, quietly pushing a half-full cart like any ordinary shopper. But to the woman beside her, known to employees only as Walmart Karen, this was her stage. "Look at you," Karen jeered, loud enough for the whole aisle to hear. "America's richest judge clipping coupons for discount soap. What a performance." A few people chuckled under their breath. Judy didn't flinch. Her eyes, cold and razor-sharp, lifted from the label just long enough to look at Karen, and in that instant, something in the air shifted. Because what Karen didn't know, and what Judy wasn't saying yet, was that she knew exactly who Karen was. She knew what she had done, and she was about to expose something Karen had spent years trying to bury. Before we reveal how this confrontation erupted, hit subscribe and tell us in the comments where you're watching from. This is one showdown you'll never forget. To most people passing by, it probably looked like nothing more than an awkward public spat. Just another entitled shopper trying to humiliate someone she didn't think belonged in her space. But it wasn't nothing. Not to the employees who had seen Karen's outburst before, not to the families quietly watching from behind their carts, and certainly not to Judge Judy, who had built her name on one unshakable belief: that arrogance, left unchallenged, metastasizes. This wasn't about soap. It wasn't about coupons. And it definitely wasn't about celebrity pride. It was about something deeper, something more corrosive than a single insult. It was about what happens when entitlement becomes so bold, so habitual, that it believes it can humiliate anyone, even someone who has spent a lifetime defending the rules that keep society upright. Karen didn't just laugh at Judy's detergent choice. She laughed at the idea that someone powerful would ever lower herself to shop among the rest of the world. She was mocking humility itself, as if dignity were only real when wrapped in luxury. Judy had seen this pattern before, not in supermarkets but in courtrooms. People who thought rules were for others. People who sneered at restraint and worshipped appearances. People who built their fragile sense of superiority by ridiculing anyone who didn't perform power the way they imagined it. And she knew something else. When you don't stop that behavior, it spreads. It teaches onlookers that cruelty wins, that humility makes you pray, that status should be defended with spectacle, not principle. That's why Judy didn't immediately respond. She wasn't ignoring Karen. She was measuring her, because this wasn't going to be a comeback for Judy's ego. It was going to be a lesson for everyone watching. Karen, of course, didn't see the lesson coming. She was too busy basking in the petty approval of a few strangers who smirked at her comment, mistaking nervous laughter for genuine support. She mistook the silence around her as intimidation, not calculation. In her world, silence meant victory. It had always worked that way. Throw the first insult, seize the room, drown your insecurities in volume. Karen thrived on spectacle, but Judy thrived on evidence. And evidence, Judy knew, had a way of stripping spectacle down to its bare truth. Because beneath Karen's mocking smile, Judy saw something brittle. A crack in the armor. A tension in the way her hands gripped her shopping cart, too tight, too rehearsed. Judy had seen that posture before in defendants who came into her courtroom dressed in arrogance, only to leave in silence after their records were read aloud. It was the posture of someone desperately guarding a secret, and Judy knew the secret. That was the real reason the stakes of this moment had risen so high so fast. This wasn't just an insult hurled at a public figure. This was a thief, standing inches from the embodiment of law, mocking her for being too ordinary. While praying, no one in the store remembered the whispers that clung to her like the residue of old crimes. Judy remembered. She remembered the reports. The old misdemeanor docket, the store security notes. She remembered everything. To the rest of the world, Karen's attack was a snide remark. But to Judy, it was the flashing red siren of a deeper cultural sickness, the illusion that arrogance erases history. That if you mock loudly enough, people will forget what you've done. That if you sneer at integrity, no one will notice your theft. Karen wasn't just trying to embarrass Judy. She was trying to rewrite the narrative, to make herself appear powerful in the presence of principle. And if Judy let that succeed, It would send a message louder than any insult Karen could shout. That reputation beats character. That deception beats truth. That was the moment Judy's decision crystallized. She wasn't just going to defend herself. She was going to defend the idea that humility is not weakness, and that people who weaponize shame to hide their own guilt cannot be allowed to win. Because this wasn't just about her name. It was about every quiet, honest person who had ever been ridiculed for living simply. It was about every cashier who'd been talked down to, every janitor who'd been laughed at for their clothes, every parent who'd been sneered at for counting coupons at the register. Karen wasn't just insulting Judy. She was insulting them all. Judy knew what would happen if she said nothing. Karen would strut away thinking she had humiliated a titan. The story would mutate before the hour was out. Karen made Judge Judy cry over soap, and it would give every other petty tyrant permission to do the same to someone else. Arrogance thrives on imitation. One unchecked performance emboldens 100 more. Judy had spent her life dismantling arrogance one case at a time. She wasn't about to let it take root here. Not in front of the teenagers bagging groceries who needed to see that decency can still stand its ground. But there was something else, something personal, that made this moment even heavier. Years ago, Judy had made a choice that puzzled her colleagues. Despite her fortune, she still did her own shopping. No assistants, no delivery services, no VIP lounges. She'd always said it was to stay grounded, but the truth was sharper than that. It was her private rebellion against the rot she'd watched consume so many powerful people. She had seen judges who started believing they were above ordinary life, and every single one of them had crumbled. They stopped seeing people. They stopped respecting rules. They mistook privilege for permanence. Judy had sworn she never would. And now here was Karen, mocking that very principle, treating humility as if it were shameful. If Judy let this go, she would betray the code that had kept her honest. She would be telling the world that arrogance had won. And then there was the record. Karen's record. That was the hidden fault line running beneath this whole moment. Judy had quietly confirmed it earlier in the week, when she recognized Karen's face from a report while preparing a guest lecture on petty theft law. 3 shoplifting arrests, 2 convictions, 1 Walmart-specific lifetime ban overturned on a technicality. Judy hadn't planned to say anything about it. She never used her knowledge to humiliate strangers, but Karen had chosen this battlefield. And she had chosen to insult the one person in the store who knew the full weight of her hypocrisy. Judy's mind moved like a chessboard. This wasn't just about winning an argument. It was about choosing the right moment to reveal the truth so it couldn't be twisted, so the lesson would stick. Because this confrontation wasn't just between 2 women. It was between 2 forces. Karen represented the culture of mockery, loud, hollow, and fleeting. Judy represented the discipline of truth, quiet, steady, and devastating when unleashed. If Judy handled this wrong, it would look like cruelty. If she handled it right, it would become a warning. That no matter how loud arrogance gets, it cannot erase the truth forever. And that was what raised the stakes beyond Walmart, beyond one insult. It became a test of something larger, whether people still cared about character at all. Whether the watching crowd would cheer for the loudest voice or for the truest one. Whether they'd walk away remembering Karen's laugh or Judy's logic. Judy didn't care about applause. She cared about the message. Because somewhere in this store were young eyes watching closely, silently deciding which behavior to copy. Karen thought this was about making Judy look small. Judy knew it was about reminding everyone what integrity looks like when it stands next to arrogance. She knew the risk. Humiliating someone publicly can backfire even if they deserve it. But she also knew the cost of silence. Silence lets rot grow, and Judy had spent her whole life cutting rot out at the root, so she straightened her shoulders. She let Karen's laughter echo a few seconds longer, just long enough for it to ring hollow, just long enough for the crowd to see it for what it was, desperation dressed as confidence. Then Judy's fingers brushed the edge of her cart, her jaw tightening as her mind locked on the path ahead. This wouldn't be an outburst. It would be a dissection. She wouldn't match Karen's volume. She would bury her in truth, because this wasn't about detergent. It was about decay, and whether anyone still had the courage to stop it when it sneered right to their face. And Judy, more than anyone alive, did. Long before she was the woman casually comparing detergent prices under the buzzing lights of a Walmart aisle, Judith Shaindlin had already become a fortress. To the world, she was Judge Judy, the sharp-tongued arbitrator who carved her name into television history with a gavel, a glare, and an iron code of fairness. But behind the legend was something rarer, something Karen couldn't see. An unshakable discipline forged in years of clawing her way up through a legal system that was never designed to make room for women with steel in their voices. Judy had grown up in Brooklyn, the daughter of working-class parents who taught her that respect is something you earn every single day. No one handed her anything. She powered through law school when few women dared to set foot in a courtroom, memorizing statutes under flickering lamps while classmates mocked her for daring to compete. When she became a family court judge, she didn't inherit a robe. She earned it by walking into rooms packed with chaos, lies, and pain, and cutting through all of it with precision so sharp it left silence in its wake. For decades, Judy sat on the bench facing the ugliest corners of human behavior: parents who abandoned children, scammers who preyed on the elderly, thieves who smiled while lying under oath. And through it all, she never bent. While other judges softened or retreated, Judy sharpened. She became known for dismantling deceit with a single sentence, for spotting dishonesty before the words even left a person's mouth. Her courtroom wasn't just a set, it was a crucible, and those who walked in thinking they could outwit her walked out scorched by their own arrogance. She didn't just succeed, she transformed the very image of judicial authority. While others wrapped themselves in pomp, Judy wrapped herself in clarity. She spoke like a real person. She dressed plainly. She refused to posture. That was what made her dangerous. She didn't need theatrics to command power. She carried it so quietly it unsettled people who depended on spectacle to feel important. And when her television career made her a millionaire many times over, she still never played the part. No designer entourages, no security teams clearing aisles. She drove her own car, paid her own bills, and still clipped her own coupons, not out of necessity but principle. Because in her mind, the moment you start thinking you're above ordinary life is the moment you stop understanding justice at all. That was what Karen failed to see. She saw an old woman with a shopping cart and mistook her for harmless. She saw simplicity and assumed it meant weakness. She thought fame meant vanity, wealth meant arrogance, and humility meant shame. She had no idea she was mocking a woman who had walked through decades of battles and never once needed to raise her voice to win. Judy didn't need to prove her strength, she embodied it. Every careful choice she made, every silent step down that Walmart aisle, was part of the same oath she'd carried for 50 years, to live by the law she demanded from others. And Karen, without knowing it, had just spat on that oath. She had no idea she'd chosen the one person in the store who knew exactly how to dismantle arrogance and do it without breaking a sweat. While Judge Judy's strength had been forged in decades of discipline, Karen's persona was cobbled together from something far flimsier: performance. Around Walmart, she wasn't just a familiar face, she was a warning. Cashiers swapped glances when they saw her approach. Managers quietly whispered her name like a storm rolling in. She carried herself with the rigid posture of someone trying to hold together a crumbling reputation, a walking contradiction of forced confidence and brittle nerves. Karen had made drama her armor. It was her way of surviving a life that had always felt small to her. Years ago, she'd been caught trying to slip a pair of headphones into her oversized purse at this very store. The security report had been quiet, buried under corporate paperwork, but the employees never forgot. She'd come back weeks later with a lawyer and a smirk, arguing her way out of a ban on a technicality. Ever since, she'd stalked the aisles with the defiant glare of someone who believed escaping consequences once meant she was immune to them forever. And yet, under that performance, there was rot. She lived in the fragile economy of petty victories, cutting in line, berating clerks, sneering at anyone who followed the rules she bent. Her pride came from comparison, not achievement. If she could make someone else look small, she could pretend she was towering. And the moment she saw Judge Judy, rich, famous, respected, and pushing a squeaky cart like a grandmother on a Sunday afternoon, something in her couldn't stand it. To Karen, that kind of humility was insulting. It threatened her whole illusion that power meant spectacle, that wealth meant sneering down from a pedestal. So she did what she always did. She performed. Loud voice, cutting tone, eyes scanning the aisle for witnesses. She wanted people to laugh with her. She needed them to, because if they laughed, it meant she wasn't small. It meant they were on her side. She mistook attention for admiration, just as she always had. But what Karen didn't realize was that the very crowd she sought to impress had already gone still. They weren't laughing, they were watching, and one of them was the last person she should have provoked. Karen didn't know Judy had quietly recognized her, hadn't noticed the subtle glance that flicked from her smirk to the faint scar on her wrist from the old security footage Judy had studied. She didn't know Judy had already seen the pattern, the petty thefts, the tantrums, the years of trying to bury her own shame by ridiculing others. Karen thought she had chosen an easy target. In truth, she had chosen her reckoning. Karen's laughter rang down the aisle like cracked glass, brittle and sharp. "Is this what it's come to?" she sneered, her voice swelling louder as she caught her own reflection in the freezer door. America's richest judge, haggling over soap like a little old coupon queen. What's next? Clipping newspaper ads for cat food. Should we start a fundraiser for you, Judy? A few startled shoppers froze mid-step. A child blinked up from a cart seat, sensing the strange heaviness in the air. Judy didn't move. Her hand remained on the detergent bottle, her eyes steady, her silence like a blade still sheathed. And then slowly she turned. Not fast, not dramatic, just precise like a gavel descending. "Karen," she said softly, and the name landed with such exactness that Karen's smirk faltered. No one had told Judy her name. Judy's voice was calm, measured, and devastating. "It's interesting," she said, "how comfortable you are mocking someone who lives honestly, when you've spent so many years trying to hide the opposite." Karen's eyebrows shot up, her jaw opening to fire back, but Judy didn't pause. 3 shoplifting arrests. 2 convictions. 1 lifetime ban from this very store, which you only overturned by arguing the cameras were biased. Gasps scattered through the aisle like breaking glass. Phones lifted silently, recording. Karen's face drained. You can't," she stammered, but Judy's tone sharpened with surgical precision. "I can," Judy said, "because while you were laughing at my coupons, you forgot something crucial. Integrity doesn't expire, but criminal records, they linger." She reached calmly into her handbag and held up a folded sheet. "This is the court docket from your 2019 case. The one where you walked out with headphones stuffed in your purse and told the security guard you forgot they were there. A judge might forget faces, but never lies." The store was silent. Karen's hands trembled on her cart handle, knuckles bleaching white. Judy took a single step closer, her voice soft but resonant. "I don't shop here to prove I'm rich. I shop here to remember who I serve, and you've mistaken arrogance for dignity so long you can't tell the difference anymore." Karen opened her mouth, then closed it. No words came. The performance had crumbled. Only silence remained. If you believe bullies should always be held accountable, hit like on this video right now. This moment deserves to be remembered. Judy placed the detergent in her cart and turned away, leaving Karen frozen in the wreckage of her own ego. The crowd parted silently for her as if justice itself had just walked by. For several long seconds after Judy walked away, the aisle stayed frozen in stunned silence. Karen stood rooted to the spot like a toppled statue that hadn't yet realized it was falling. Her lips parted but soundless. It wasn't just embarrassment. It was the kind of silence that comes when someone's entire performance collapses under the weight of truth. And while Karen stared at the floor as if she could sink through it, everyone else lifted their phones. Within minutes, clips of the confrontation began flooding social media. Grainy vertical videos showed Judy's calm precision, her voice steady and sharp, slicing through Karen's bluster like steel. The moment Judy said 3 shoplifting arrests echoed through TikTok captions in looping bold text. On Twitter, the hashtag #JudgeJudy.s surged into the top 5 worldwide. On Instagram, people reposted the clip with the caption, "She brought a gavel to a grocery fight." By the time Judy's car pulled out of the Walmart parking lot, millions were watching. Local news picked up the story within the hour, anchoring their coverage with words like, "brutal, surgical, and unshakable." Commentators couldn't get enough of the contrast, Karen's shrill theatrics crumbling under the quiet weight of Judy's truth. Even the usually restrained evening news anchors cracked smiles as they played the footage, one of them quietly saying on air, "That was legendary." Walmart corporate released a statement before sunset confirming that Karen had, in fact, been previously banned from several stores for shoplifting-related incidents and that she would now be permanently barred from all Walmart properties. The statement was unusually blunt, almost gleeful in its subtext. We thank Judge Scheindlin for her composure in a challenging situation and reaffirm our commitment to ensuring a safe environment for our customers and staff. For employees at that store, it was vindication. Many had whispered about Karen for years, her reputation haunting every shift like static in the air. Now the fear was gone. The next morning, the staff break room buzzed with laughter as they replayed the video on a loop, mimicking Judy's calm tone with awe. She didn't even raise her voice, one cashier said, shaking her head. She just ended her. The public reaction was even louder. Fans flooded Judy's social media pages with thousands of comments calling her a hero, a legend, a protector of decency. Former court colleagues posted tributes, praising her for demonstrating that dignity doesn't flinch when arrogance attacks. Legal analysts on morning talk shows praised her response as a masterclass in measured rebuttal. And perhaps most surprisingly, teens on TikTok, most of whom had never watched a full courtroom episode, declared Judy their new queen of accountability, remixing her quotes over trending audio clips. Even celebrities joined in. Talk show hosts played the video on air. One actor tweeted, "Judge Judy just did more for justice in a Walmart aisle than most politicians do in a year." The clip broke into mainstream news segments about the cultural hunger for accountability, and major publications ran think pieces about why the moment resonated so deeply, because it wasn't just about a judge exposing a petty thief. It was about something bigger, something people didn't even realize they'd been craving. Someone refusing to let arrogance win. For so long, the world had felt like it rewarded loudness over truth, bluster over substance. Watching Judy dismantle Karen without theatrics, without shouting, without even breaking her stride. It reminded people what real strength looked like. It reminded them that silence can be more powerful than screaming when it carries the weight of truth behind it. Karen, meanwhile, vanished. Her social media accounts went dark within hours. A neighbor told a local reporter she hadn't left her house since the video aired. But even her absence became part of the story. Memes showed a Walmart aisle with the caption, "Here lies Karen's last shred of dignity." Others featured Judy's calm stare with the words, "Receipts, rumors." What had started as one woman's tantrum had transformed into a cultural moment, a parable about arrogance meeting consequence. Walmart. Stores across the country quietly started printing the video still on their employee bulletin boards as a morale boost. One regional manager said anonymously, "It's been years since I've seen the staff this energized. It's like they feel protected, like someone finally stood up for them." Even in professional circles, the moment became a talking point. Legal forums buzzed with discussions about Judy's response style, dissecting how she timed her words for maximum impact. Crisis communication experts praised how she reframed the encounter from personal insult to universal principle. PR analysts noted how her calm demeanor amplified the blow. It looked less like a fight and more like justice simply revealing itself. And through all of it, Judy said nothing. No interviews. No victory laps. She didn't post about it, didn't reference it on her shows, didn't even acknowledge the viral storm she had created. That silence became its own statement. While Karen scrambled to erase the fallout, Judy simply carried on, still showing up at grocery stores, still pushing her own cart, still living by the same principles that had made her powerful in the first place. And that, more than anything, made the public love her even more. She hadn't just won an argument. She had defended the idea that character doesn't need to scream to be heard. Months later, people still whispered about the day. Arrogance tried to mock humility, and humility exposed the truth. Judge Judy became a symbol of quiet strength. Karen became a cautionary tale. Subscribe now if you believe integrity always wins, and comment who Judy should humble next.